Hey VC, Erik the Viking here again. This is going to be the last video I'll post tonight. Got quite a lot to get through here. Yeah, it's about time I talked about some jazz. Massively into jazz, as a lot of you are. And I thought it was about time I posted up a video. So I've basically gone through the whole collection. You can see the gaps there, and picked out some of my, well, quite a few jazz albums. Yeah, I'll go through it as I go through them. Yeah, so they're alphabetical as well. So we'll start with the Art Ensemble of Chicago, who I'm a big fan of. I've basically picked around one album per artist. I've got a ton of their stuff. They did release a lot of stuff, but this is the one album that really stands out for me, Baptism, which was live at the Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz Festival in '72. Just insane live performance. I mean, there's loads of percussion workouts on here. It is just brilliant. And you know, what can I say? Amazing bunch of musicians. Absolutely brilliant. And this isn't one of their rarest albums. This is one of the albums they released on their return back to the States after their period in France, where they did quite a few albums, and a lot of their French albums are great too. All the BYG stuff was really good. But this, for me, has to be my favourite, I think, because it's just brilliant. Roy Ayers, of course. Obviously, I thought I'd show one of his earlier jazzier albums. I've got all his Ubiquity stuff too, which I may do a separate video for at some point. This is his second album, Virgo Vibes, which I think is produced by Herbie Mann, because he was with Herbie Mann at this time. 1967, a great jazz album. This is the first stereo pressing on the lovely turquoise and green Atlantic label. Not a very hard album to find, but brilliant. The Ring is a particularly good track. Yeah, you got Charles Tolliver on this, Joe Henderson, Reggie Workman. Very good album. So this was very early on in his career, and well worth checking out. I've got all different types of jazz in my collection, which will reflect in this video. This is Gary Bartz and the NTU Troupe. Big fan of Gary Bartz. Obviously his stuff's a bit more soul and funk influenced, as is this album, the live one at Montreux, I've Known Rivers and Other Bodies. This is from '73, I believe, on Prestige, double album. I'd say it's one of his strongest albums. Really hard to find a nice copy of this now. I've had this since I was in college at least. The only album of his I still need is The Shadow Do, which was his last album on Prestige, which was produced by the Mizell Brothers, which is just so rare, but I think it's one of his best albums. But that's more of a funk album, but this is just a really nice jazz album. Quite a lot of vocals on there, but really nice, really good album. Big fan of the BYG label. I don't have an awful lot on it. What I do have, I will show you. This is one of them, Anthony Braxton. I think this was his first album. That is actually the title, which is why a lot of people just call it the Anthony Braxton album, or BXO NO47A, which I think that is I think it's some sort of chemicals. No, it's not a chemical symbol. I don't know what it is, but these guys certainly knew what they were doing. The great thing I love about these BYG albums is the packaging, because pretty much every front cover has got this sort of border with a picture with the logo up there. It gives it a very sort of generic look, which is quite unusual. This is from 1969, I believe. I picked this up fairly recently, and this is pretty out there. I mean, it's quite free, but a lot of it's very it's mint original pressing. A lot of it's quite quiet, you know, there's a lot of percussion and things like that, quite like the Art Ensemble's early stuff. Really good if you're into that kind of thing. And he is one of the coolest looking cats, man. I wish I could grow sideburns like that. So that's Anthony Braxton. Of course, Donald Byrd. Got quite a few of his albums. I just sort of grabbed this one because it's got Love So Far Away on it, which I absolutely love. Obviously, I think this was his first biggest selling album, really big selling album, with the Mizell Brothers producing. And it's the first pressing on Blue Note with the nice inner sleeve there. Classic. Ornette Coleman. If it wasn't for him, the term free jazz probably would not have been concocted. This album's just, what can I say? The Jackson Pollard artwork, the first stereo pressing. Very proud to have one of these. There you go. The double quartet, which was a pretty cool idea, and that's why you have to hear this album in stereo, because each quartet is in one channel. You got Erik Dolphy's on this. Yeah, Erik. I mean, this lineup: Erik Dolphy. Sadly, I don't have any of his albums. John Cherry, again, I don't have any of his. Big fans of both of them, but I just don't have any of their stuff. Freddie Hubbard, Scott LaFaro, Charlie Hayden, Billy Higgins, Ed Blackwell. That's in one channel, and the other channel you've got. Oh, hang on. No, wait. No, sorry, that is the lineup, but they're sort of separated into two different channels. Anyway, this album's just phenomenal. Definitely one of the albums that got me into jazz. I first heard this when I was in college. I was quite a late starter with jazz, but this was the guy that really got me into jazz. When I was a lot younger, of course, Coltrane. It was Love Supreme that I heard first. I think I was about 8 years old and I loved it. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of that. There's a lot of jazz stuff I still need. Finding original pressings of jazz albums here in England is very hard, especially American pressings. So a lot of these I bought online and things like that. It's a nice first stereo pressing. Very hard to find. No, second, I think. I think the first one was on the first mono was a Black Atlantic label. I believe there is actually a stereo one that's on a plain green Atlantic label, but it is incredibly rare. This is rare enough. Actually, no, that is the third pressing. There's another one as well with a white label with the fan logo in the middle. There's quite a few. Yeah, I mean, how can you... That track is just... what can I say? It's amazing. I'm showing quite a few Coltrane ones here because I'm a big fan. I've got an original stereo Africa Brass, which I'm very pleased to own. This is obviously one of the earliest Impulse releases, and the great thing about it, you can't go wrong with the Impulse. Oh, sorry, nearly dropped it. Impulse releases. They got thick sleeves, great covers, quite like the Blue Note stuff. And this has even got the original ABC inner sleeve. So that's a really nice example there. And that label's just beautiful. That's that Africa Brass. Interestingly, the box set of Africa, the sessions, I quite prefer, but the alternative take on there. Well, I think maybe it's because I'm more used to it. I don't know, I could get a lot of disagreement saying that. Another one of my favourite Coltrane albums, Meditations. I've got Ascension up there as well, but I thought I'd just grab these. This is the first stereo pressing, and this is immaculate. Very, very pleased to have one of these. Yeah. Oh, this album's just mental. I love it. So that's my Coltrane ones I'm going to show. Another interesting character, Larry Coryell. Again, like Gary Bart's, quite a few of his albums were soul influenced. They had, him singing on them. They're all good. This is one of the jazzier ones, which was on the newly started Flying Dutchman label. Very nice soulful jazz album with The Great Escape on it, and Gypsy Queen, Call to Higher Consciousness. That's the first pressing. And obviously you can tell these were in conjunction with ABC, because like Impulse you've got the spine there with this sort of cool design down the side. Obviously, I was going to put some Miles in here, but I've already done a Miles Davis video, which you guys should check out. Not enough people have been watching that for some reason. Miles' drummer from the late 60s, early 70s, Jack DeJohnette, or DeJohnette. I've always said DeJohnette. I don't know which one's right. I think this is his first solo album. Really nice album on the Milestone label from 1970, with Benny Maupin on it, Stanley Cowell, Miroslav Vitus, Roy Haynes. Good lineup. Because interestingly, on some of the tracks here on this album, Jack DeJohnette's playing the melodica. So Roy Haynes is drumming on those tracks, and you can see him playing that there. Really nice album. I'd highly recommend that. One of my favourite guitarists, Grant Green. I don't have an awful lot of his albums because they're hard to find. This is Live at the Lighthouse from 1974. Really nice live album. Has a great take of Fancy Free on it. Really good lineup as well. It's just a great album. It's very energetic, very fast paced, double album. I highly recommend that. Really nice soulful jazz album. Steve Grossman, who was also in Miles Davis's band, Terra Firma. This was on his and Gene Perler's label, PM. Features the really funky Inmate Man, which Madlib put on a compilation, like a Los Angeles soundtrack thing he put together. And it's got This Way Out, Relentless Lady, Katona, some really good stuff on here. Don Elias is on it too, and Jan Hammer, so you can't go wrong with that. 1976. Again, not that hard to find. Getting a bit harder to find now, but it has been repressed, so that's the first pressing. Another legend, Herbie. I've only picked one. I haven't got any of his Blue Note stuff, just because it's hard to find them. But Fat Albert is still a great jazz album. Yeah, of course it's got the funk element, but the funny thing about this is the English pressing. Now, for years, I was convinced that this didn't exist until I actually found a first English pressing on the Orange Warner Brothers label. I've never seen another one come up for sale. I got this when I worked in the record shop in Notting Hill. It's a really nice copy. So it does exist, and I don't know how rare this is really, because I've never seen another one come up for sale, but I'd imagine it's pretty hard to find now. Yeah. Bobby Humphrey, legendary flautist. This is Blacks and Blues, Mizzle Brothers production again. Great album on Blue Note. What more can I say? Just a great album. Another guy that I absolutely love. This is the only album of his I have. Weldon Irvin, Cosmic Vortex on RCA. My favourite album of his is Sinbad, but it's really hard to find that. But this is a really nice funky jazz album. The late great Weldon Irvin there. Really cool stuff. Highly recommended. Elvin Jones, this was sealed when I bought it. This is the Merry-Go-Round album. And I bought this because I heard the track Round Town. I think it's from 72. Jan Hammer's on this, Gene Perler, Chick Corea, Joe Farrell, Dave Liebman, Steve Grossman, Don Elias. Great lineup. Yeah, Round Town's a really nice track. A good album, I'd recommend it. His solo stuff's worth checking out. That's the only one I have. Another favourite of mine, Rahsaan Roland Kirk. It was hard for me to pick one, but I was going to take Volunteered Slavery, but I thought Left and Right because the sleeve is great, isn't it? This is an interesting album. It's 1968. The first side is like a suite, Expansions, which is a whole medley of all these crazy melodies. Some of it sounds quite Mingus. Beautiful first stereo pressing there, English pressing. The album is worth it for that half alone. The second half is a sort of set of standards, but still very well done. And pretty much all of Roland's 60s and 70s stuff, or early 70s stuff, is worth getting. So you never know what you're going to get with Roland. Yusuf Lateef, another great sax and flautist. This is one of his funkier albums. It's actually the only one I own. First pressing on Atlantic from '69. Yusuf Lateef's Detroit. Great album, really good. And interestingly, where I live, Harrow, there's a Harrow in Detroit, which is pretty cool, and also in Essex, and a Maidstone. These are all in England. Yeah, and a Windsor. Crazy, but Harrow shocked me because Harrow's quite a small place here where I live, and to see that on the Detroit map right in the corner there was quite nice. Herbie Mann, thought I got to give him a shout out. I do like Herbie Mann a lot. Again, Herbie Mann doesn't really get much shout outs these days, but I think he's good. And anyone that got Sonny Sharrock on the map, for me, one of the finest guitarists ever to grace the planet. Sonny Sharrock's on this album. And Royez, of course, is on this. He is on this album, isn't he? Is he on this album? Yes, he is. And Larry Coryell as well. This album's great. It's funky as hell. The lineup is banging. It's got a great cover of Hold On I'm Coming with Sharrock doing one of his crazy solos on there. God knows what people thought when they first heard this. Brilliant album. Another guy from Herbie Mann's band was Steve Marcus, who's been kind of forgotten about. He died quite young. Good sax player. This is on the Vortex label, which was a sort of experimental label owned by Atlantic. There's a lot of free stuff on this label. Lovely design. You've got Sonny Sharrock on here as well. And that's sort of, I think it's pretty much the same guys that on the album I just showed you. It's got a crazy cover of Rain by the Beatles, with another Sonny Sharrock solo, and the whole track just descends into madness. It's about 8 minutes long. Really nice cover of 8 Miles High, and a great cover of Tomorrow Never Knows as well. Really good album. And this was the first release on Vortex, 2001. You don't see this much, but if you do find it, get it. He also made a couple more albums for Vortex, which are okay. The second one's got Larry Coryell on it. His fourth album only came out in Japan, called Green Line, with Sonny Sharrock and Miroslav Vitous. That is really good. Yeah. Again, big fan of Hugh Masekela. This is probably one of his more jazzier albums. A lot of his, my favourite album of his is actually the one after this, Masekela, but there's more vocals on that. It's more of a funky kind of album, but this has got his hit Grazing in the Grass on it. It's also got a nice cover of Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Madonna, No Face, No Name and No Number. It's a good album, 1968. It's on the beautiful Uni label. I love that label. Well, another one of my favourite guitarists, John McLaughlin. I think he was in his prime in the late 60s and early 70s, particularly when he was with Miles. This was his first solo album that was recorded in England before he went over to join the Tony Williams Lifetime in 1969. This album's from 68 with John Sermon on sax, another great sax player. I don't have any of his albums, unfortunately. This is a second pressing from 1971, English pressing. I'd love to get an original pressing on Marmalade, but they're very rare. But this album's great, and I would recommend it highly. It's just a crazy, crazy jazz album. And yeah, McLaughlin was on another planet, really. Still is. Another one of my all-time favourite jazz albums is The Black Saint and the Sinner Lady by Mingus, the great Charles Mingus. This album's just crazy. It's sort of like, it was conceived as a sort of ballet. I think he composed a lot of it on piano, and it's all sort of themed. All I can say about this is just get it, because it will blow your mind. It blew mine, and it is my favourite Mingus album. I love Oh Yeah and as well, and stuff like that, but this album does it for me. It just, every time, it is so emotional. It's great. The album you're listening to in the background is Placebo, Mark Moulon's Belgian funky jazz group from the early 70s. Obviously this is from 73, and no, it's not an original pressing. If it was, it would be worth a shitload of money. They made 3 albums, released in Belgium only. Funky as hell and fucking rare. Yeah, basically these were repressings from a couple of years ago. I think there was 500 made of each. I've got all 3 of them. You can still get them, but they're about 50 quid each now. But if you want to save yourself a lot of money and you're into Mark Moulon and Placebo, I'd recommend these. Chick Corea, of course, Return to Forever. I don't have much Chick stuff. I love his early solo stuff, but I just don't have any. Is a great album, as is Tones for Jones Bones. All that stuff's brilliant. But I thought I'd pick this, Where Have I Known You Before. Lovely Return to Forever album. Song to the Pharaoh Kings is a particular favourite of mine. Really good fusion album, of course, with Lenny White, Aldi Meola and Stanley Clarke. You can't really argue with that. Great album. Another favourite of mine now, I've picked a few of his albums. The mighty Pharoah Sanders, DC. I know you've been showing some of his stuff recently, and I was pretty pleased to see that someone else has an original stereo pressing too, because this is the only one I've ever seen come up for sale. On the original label with the orange centre. I won't get it out now because it's time consuming, and the inner sleeve is a bit split. But yeah, this album again has got Sonny Sharrock on it, and this is my favourite Pharoah Sanders album. It is just incredible, because you've got Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, a track one of my favourite jazz compositions really. The latter part, the latter part is actually Upper Egypt. I always thought it was Lower Egypt because the track's called Upper and Lower, but the second half of the track, the faster part, is just one of the best jazz grooves ever. And I actually recorded a cover of that. It actually came out pretty well. That's great, just brilliant. Another Pharoah album I love is Isif Ozan on Strata East, which I don't have. I would love to get a copy of that because it's just, yeah. Karma, of course, another great album with the mighty Leon Thomas on vocals. It's a nice early pressing. Great album. And another one which doesn't get, I've got Femby and all that as well, but I thought I'd show this. Loving Us All. This one doesn't get that much credit. It came out in '74. I think it's out of print as well. I don't think it's in print at all currently. It's definitely one of his harder albums to find on the Impulse label. This is great because it has the track Love Is Everywhere, which is, it's interesting because the first 5 minutes is a separate track which was actually released on the album before, Wisdom Through Music. Great spiritual jazz tune, and Pharoah's actually singing on it, and it is one of those tracks that I will put on now because it just is phenomenal. And then it basically goes into a different slower take of the same song, instrumental. So it's interesting. I'm not sure why they decided to put the two together for this, because obviously that track was originally released somewhere else. Yeah, but there you go. Great album. So, Love Is Everywhere by Pharoah Sanders. Another artist I'd love to see live, and he was at the Jazz Cafe last Christmas in London, and I missed it because I'm an idiot. And yep, Sonny Sharrock, I've been talking about him enough. I think I showed this previously because I've recently picked it up. I've got Monkey Pocky Boo on vinyl as well. My favourite album of his is actually Ask the Ages, but that never came out on vinyl. But Black Woman is a pretty heavy album too. His wife Linda's on this too, who's on the cover, who was like a very like Yoko Ono, but better, and was doing shit like that before Yoko was. Again, this is on the Vortex label, and you see, the thing is with Yoko Ono, you know, I mean, a lot of people moan about her. I find her hard to listen to. It's caterwauling to me. Whereas this is more spiritual. It's more involved. It's more emotional. It's more in tune with the rest of the music. But my favourite track on this is actually Blind Willie, which is just Sonny on acoustic guitar, which is a very sort of folky almost track that just sort of goes on for about 4 minutes and then just dies down as soon as it appears. But it's just brilliant. Just playing this ongoing riff and alternating it. It's great. Archie Shepp, again I've got a few of his albums. Blase is one of my favourites, but I thought I'd show Attica Blues because this is the first album of his I heard, and when I heard it my jaw went like that. I was just blown away. It's a lovely promo copy here. Great album. Yeah, nice to see a nice white label on Impulse there. Very pleased to have one of these because it's another one that you just can't find now. Another legendary BYG release. I know Derek's video, Derek Von, I know you showed this as well on your BYG video. Alan Silver's Seasons. This is probably one of the most, how can I put it? This album is draining, but it is brilliant. It's a triple album. Alan Silver actually plays one of these, which I think is an amplified Sarangi, but he sort of has it for an Echoplex pedal, and it just sounds like wow. The lineup on this is incredible enough. Again, you see what I'm saying with BYG's packaging? This is one of the rarer albums, and it's an original pressing that I got from for about £30 years ago. But the amazing thing about this, it actually has a chart here of who plays what at what time, who comes in, who does the solos. There is actually a structure to this, but it is free as hell. And the last fifth of the album is just noise. It's great. The lineup's insane as well. You've got Alan Silver, Bernard Vitette, Lester Bowie, Alan Shorter, Joseph Jarman, Steve Lacey, Ronnie Beer, Roscoe Mitchell, Robin Kenyatta, Michel Portal, Dieter Gewisler, Jules Miner, Kent Carter, Irene Abbey, Dave Burrell, Joachim Kuhn, Don Moye, Jerome Cooper, Oliver Johnson, and yeah, that says it all. So I'm very, very proud to have one of these. And I've just realised as I was saying his name, I've got one of Robin Kenyatta's album which I absolutely adore, and I forgot to put it in here, which is really annoying. So I'll have to put on another video. It's called Girl from Martinique. It's a really early ECM release with Wolfgang Downer on keys, another guy I love. Again, I don't have any of his stuff on vinyl because they're just too expensive. Anyway, that's that album. Next up, I've got a couple by the man, the myth, Mr. Ra, Mr. Ree, Sun Ra, of course. This is Space is the Place, of course, on Blue Note. Sorry, no, Blue Thumb. Quite different. This is the quad pressing. It plays on normal decks. This was the first album that got me into Sun Ra. I'm a huge fan of Sun Ra. I'm definitely going to post a separate video because I've got tons of Sun Ra. I don't have any pressings on Saturn, but still, I have a lot of Sun Ra stuff. Sun Ra is one of my favourite musicians, period. He's just way up there for me, and I absolutely love him. Yeah, this album was the first I heard in college again. When I was in college was when I started really getting into jazz generally, and it just blew me away. I was just completely spellbound. Even now, I find it hard to sort of talk about Sun Ra because it's just, what can you say? It's just incredible. Sun Ra, ladies and gentlemen. Another Sun Ra album, which is a big part of my life, is Atlantis. This is the 1972 pressing on it, 73 pressing on Impulse. I think this was the first Saturn album that Impulse reissued. They were meant to reissue a load more, but sadly that never happened. Not unfortunately. Sadly it never happened. Promo copy. The sad thing about this pressing is that the master tapes were damaged for side 1, so the quality is not perfect. But side 1 of this album is Ra on the clavinet, which in '68 when this was originally released was a pretty new instrument. He was always miles ahead of everyone with the keys. Clavinet and just percussion and John Gilmore on sax, and it is earthy and raw and fucking amazing. The B-side Atlantis scares the hell out of me even now. It's 21 minutes of it. Majority of it is just the most intense keyboard solo you'll ever hear, but I would recommend that album to anyone. It's got a lovely sleeve. The original pressing is a completely different sleeve. I'd love to have one, but I don't think I'll ever get one. Another great Ra album, which isn't mentioned that often. It was recorded around the same time as Languidity during his sort of funkier phase. Strange Celestial Road, Sleeping Beauty was also recorded during this time. Those three albums, and also On Jupiter, are funky as hell, and they are so good. And this is an English pressing on the Y label, the Rough Trade Y label. Doesn't turn up often. 1980. Very pleased to have one of these. There's the mint copy. Recommended. I'd recommend that. If you want an introduction to Ra, that's a good place to start because it's not too hard on the ears. And you've got to slowly get yourself into the other stuff. McCoy Tyner. I just picked this up recently. This is a superb album. All of his solo stuff's pretty good, especially the Blue Note stuff. But Expansions, I think, was one of his first solo albums. This is not a first pressing though, it's on the mid-70s Blue Note label, but still a really nice one to have. A really good album. This is another one that blew me away when I first heard it. I mean, McCoy Tyner as a pianist is just phenomenal anyway, but hearing him on his own, not as a sort of sideman, is really nice. Another guy who I absolutely love, who got me into a lot of things that were going on around the time I was in college was Tony Williams, Anthony Williams, Tony Williams' Lifetime. These guys invented fusion, in my opinion. This is the first proper jazz fusion album. I mean, this was recorded in 68, I believe. Hang on, what says it here? 69. It's just him and John McLaughlin and Larry Young. Larry Young, incredible keyboardist, who I'll talk about next. Is doing all the bass himself with the bass pedals. This is amazing, and I'm so pleased that I've got an original English pressing as a double, because I think in America they did the double pressing, and they also did it as 2 separate volumes, but over here it just came out as this, and it's very rare. I got this for about £20 years ago, but I've seen one on eBay since, £150. Such a shame, because obviously this is on CD, but I don't think there's any other vinyl pressings around. But even American ones are scarce, but if you can find it, get it, because this is one of the best. This is one of my favourite albums of all time, and it still blows my mind even now. And all the early Lifetime albums are good. Turn It Over's great, Ego's good as well, and the old Bums Rush is good too. And then you've got Believe It and $1 Million Legs, which are great. I might actually do a separate Williams video when I get a chance, a Lifetime video. So that's that. And last but certainly not least, Larry Young. I got this recently too. I've been after this for years. This is Larry's first, no, sorry, not first. Is one of his early 70s solo albums on Perception. Really good spiritual jazz album. This is an original pressing which I just got from the States. Really nice copy. And it's got James Blood Ulmer on it, Howard King, who was with Gary Bartz, Juma Santos, and I don't know if you got them, I'm sure you all know. It says mystery guest sax and vocals. It's actually Pharoah Sanders. Junie Booth is on here. There's loads of people. Cedric Lawson. This album is insane. It's just spiritual through and through, and it is incredible. I think I've been going on for long enough now. It's been over half an hour. I've done a lot of videos tonight, and I've gone through a lot of records. I need a lot of catching up to do, but that'll have to do for now, guys. So just keep commenting, it'd be great to speak to you all. I hope you're all good, and I will keep commenting back. Peace.